Welcome to Pigeon River Farm, doing farming right. I'm Robert Brown, the owner of Pigeon River Farm. Thank you for viewing. Well, good evening. In tonight's episode, we're going to talk about Brix testing. And Brix testing is actually to determine the amount of sugar content that we have in a plant. I view it mainly from a grazer standpoint. So my pastures are the lifeblood of my farming operation. Without good soil and good plant growth, won't be making any money. That would go from the poultry and the cattle and the goats and temporarily with the sheep. So it's a lot to consider. And so a tool that I use on an extremely regular basis, I'd say every week to 3 weeks, depending on what time in the growing season it is, I end up taking my Brix tester out and I see what the Brix count of the variety of plants that I have. So in tonight's episode, we're going to talk about utilizing the tool. I have a little demonstration here that I want to show you. You'll see in some of these slides as we move along, it's a critical tool for assessing the plant and soil health. Again, it's used to measure the amount of sugar that you'll find in a plant. And sugar is the best indication of plant health that there is. I mean, you can take tissue samples, send them to the lab, and you're going to get much more definitive information. But as just a good, solid, run-of-the-mill standard test you can do every day, Brix testing is where it's at. Okay, so in the Brix testing world, the key to it is the higher the better. Time of day that you take the sample is critical because your sugar content within the plant will change from given times of the day. So be aware of that. Try to be consistent as possible when you take your samples. I took these a little later than I normally would, so they're a little bit off. So we're in the evening here. I took these about 2-3 hours ago. So what we're going to do next, I'm going to show you some of the pieces here. One is I have a special tool that I purchased. It's specifically for Brix testing. It's just the conventional vice grips. And it uses this duckbill design that allows you to put the plant tissue in here, squeeze it, and you'll be able to get the sample out. We'll be demonstrating that in just a moment. The next one, and I guess the most important tool, is the refractometer. You might see these are used in a garage environment for checking coolant levels. They're used in a lot of commercial environments. So refractometers are a common thing. I had an electronic one, worked really good till it didn't. It was more expensive getting repaired than it was to buy a new one, and they're real pricey. And I found that this one can sit in the, travel with me without any chances of any damage, and it's not that terribly expensive if something would happen. But it's been with me for about, I think, 12, 14 years, and it still works as good as the day I got it. So what we do is we're going to put a sample on the lens here. I'm going to look through here into a bright light, and it's best if you're doing this outside. I'm doing this in our little, I guess we call it our little booth here, and I can still see the level. So next thing I'm going to do is show you is going to be our little sample syringe, and that's what we're going to bring the plant tissue into the refractometer. But one of the first things we do, and I have some distilled water here, so we're going to take and we're going to put a little bit of this distilled water, get that out of here, onto the lens here. Two things that's going to happen. One is I'm going to calibrate it, make sure we're actually at 0. And number 2, it allows me to clean everything up in case I didn't do it from last time. And we have a perfect 0. Okay, now it's time to take our sample. So I guess in no particular order, I might as well the first one I grabbed here. Is some of our grass, kind of look like a Timothy possibly. So my technique, and there's many different ways to do this, I just make it into a simple little ball. Put it in the jaws of the tool. We don't need much of a sample, so I don't have to envision overdoing this by any stretch of the imagination. I got a real nice little sample on there, and that's all I'm going to need. Put it on, put a little down pressure. Okay, we're not too bad. It looks like about 8 Brix on regular grass, so that's not bad. We're getting into the fall of the year, so the performance is starting to drop off a little bit. I'm going to make sure we clean the lens thoroughly, leave nothing left over, and then we're going to go over to our water, and it's going to serve 2 purposes. One was to do our calibration, and the second one is to get all the juice out of there. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure all the water's out. We'll take our current sample out of here. Clean it up so we don't get a cross sample and give us wrong information. Okay, the next one is we got some white clover. This is going to give us a lot more liquid just by its design. I would have rather done this extremely fresh, right? But not the end of the world here from a demonstration standpoint. Okay, got a little ball made up, a little mess made. Again, we're going to place it into the jar, try to push it in a little bit. Just a tad. Get a little bit more in there. And again, you only need a small sample. And it's got that sweet clover smell. Wow. Wow. We're at about 18, so that has some good quality to it. Some very good quality. We'll clean up our range, go get our crop back in the Okay, again, we want to make sure we clean out all the leftovers. Again, doing this outside would be more preferable. Okay, we're going to clean this out again very thoroughly. And our last sample. And there's going to be some plantain. Again, I'll make it into a nice little ball. Okay, another sample. Apply it. And that one's a little bit lower, about 12 brick. So percentage of sugar there is about 12%. So you can see it's simple process. Easier to done in your pasture, your garden, wherever you're going to take your sample, not in your little table. So that's the process. Now you can see in this video, I'm doing it out in the pasture and grabbing some samples so you can see the normal setup that I have. Okay, now that you had a chance to look at the video, here is I have a little Brix chart. They're readily available online. There's nothing to them. I've got a lot of my own custom numbers that I've looked for, but these are kind of standard. I mean, it's got everything in it, from apples to, grow a lot of grapefruit around here. Strawberries, I definitely test them on the strawberries. We have broccoli and field peas. I've used it on field peas, lettuce, onions, squash. We raise quite a lot of squash, sweet corn. So these are all things that you can test. So the key here is to utilize this tool, and then when you're, say, putting away forage, specifically hay, this makes an incredibly good tool to utilize. When you're coming up to making your hay, get the maximum amount of sugar into it when you cut it. That's kind of a rule. It's an old farmer rule. This allows you to see exactly what the condition is with the plants that you're dealing with, and it's a learning curve. You're not just going to go out and find a magic number on the internet and say go with that. You're going to look at this over time, just like soil samples, exactly the same way, except it's a little more real time and you can do it more frequently. I've gone out on top experimenting on some of my hay fields and done a morning, noon, and early evening, and I found that noon or early afternoon is actually the best time to cut hay. From moving the cattle from one pasture to another. Again, a benefit of that. So a simple little tool like a refractometer. You won't have a lot invested by the time you buy this and the pliers, and that's all you really need. This one came with a fancy little carrying case. You need some kind of a bottle, a baby bottle with a cover on it, whatever would work. Baby food bottle with a cover on it, something like this works really good. Remember, you'll need a little distilled water, so I went and got some out of a container. You can even use the stuff from your air conditioner. Not quite the same, but it gets the job done. And I found that these normally don't come out of calibration. They seem to just stay there. But that is it. That's what I have for tonight. I thank you all for joining. Please subscribe and stay tuned for the next one.